Jeez, I tell you what, fellas watching, typical story of dealing with women, eh? you can't live with them. But if you really need to, you can have them executed. Now, here's an interesting fact for you. Peasants, harder to kill than you might actually suspect. I don't know, it's like a chicken, how they can survive with their head cut off. Actually, funny story, reminds me of the Battle of Boulogne. One of my friends, Terence of Brunswick, I think was his name. Big axeman, big strapping fella, brain of a child, very intellectually slow, but my God, could he absolutely bash someone's brains out with the back of his hand. Well, he hacked this one French peasant in half, and the guy was crawling around. You know, his top half was crawling around, and his legs were still running around for about 30, 45 seconds after he'd actually been killed. We laughed, how we laughed. And Terence, it was hilarious because the chap, you couldn't really hear what he was trying to say because he just kept coughing up blood. So Terence was doing an impression of him. Oh, sacre bleu, monsieur, merci, merci. And we laughed because Terence, he wasn't a smart fella. He didn't realise that mercy was a pun. Obviously, mercy meaning thank you in French. So he'd actually accidentally said something quite clever, which was usually the only way he said something clever, really. God, Terence was a good lad. But then when my second wife got caught up in that whole mess where she was sleeping with half the court, some evidence came to light that Terence may have taken her in the style with which a Greek takes a boy. And obviously that couldn't really fly, so had him executed in the end. In a way he lives on through that anecdote, so it's not all sad. Another thing you gotta know about peasants is you gotta kill them quick, and you really, if you can't guarantee you're going to be able to finish them off, you've at least got to destroy their reproductive organs. And I know that sounds particularly harsh, but they breed like rabbits. You would not imagine. You can go through a village in northern France, put it to the sword, put it to the flame, kill, as far as you're aware, kill every living creature, even down to the cows and the chickens. And I will tell you, if you do not look under the floorboards, you will come back in 12 years and it will be thriving. Us royalty get a lot of flack for sleeping with our family members, and while there is an element of truth to that, that is nothing on what peasants will get up to. Peasants will, and I really mean this in the politest way, shag anything that moves. Cromwell, he used to tell me that when he was over in Italy, he actually saw a village of people who completely restocked from one man and a cow. Oh, anyway, yeah, so, Cromwell, could get a little bit fast and loose with the truth, but there are some things he would never lie about. And stories about villages in Italy being repopulated with a kind of half-beast, half-man race of creatures, that is not something the Tommy Cromwell I knew would have told a tall story about. He's a very serious man, despite it all. In the end, I did also have his head cut off. And I can't say I'm terribly proud of that, because while I did pay for a good French swordsman to cut Anne's head off, because at the end of the day, I am a gentleman, despite what people have said, and he did it in one clean stroke. She didn't even know what was going to happen. And personally, is it too far to go to say that was quite a feminist move at the time? Not at all. But unfortunately, Tommy's head, no, that did take a few swings. It's been suggested that Nottingham paid off the axeman, which honestly wouldn't put him past him. One of the few regrets I have in life is that I didn't get to have Nottingham executed, because he was just a slimy prick, that man. And he just he got off. Hey, I did die before I executed him. I was this close, though. Really, you know what? I will say this to those of you still living. Make every moment count, because it's often the things you didn't do that you regret. And yeah, I could regret having my wives executed. I could regret, having a very poor relationship with both of my daughters. But at the end of the day, that's not the things I regret. The things I regret are that I didn't have more people I had minor disagreements with horribly killed. If you can, take vengeance, perform petty acts of cruelty, spread calumnies, use lies if you have to, but, you know, make sure your enemies suffer. You know, if that's the one thing that you get from this, make sure your enemies suffer, and make sure they suffer while you're still alive to enjoy it, because I tell you now, it's just not the same. You know, people have tried to be to me like, Tommy Cromwell, he got the last laugh on you, didn't he? Because his great grandnephew, you know, had your great grandnephew's head cut off, and to that I just say, I don't give a fuck. Why would I give a flying fuck about Charles I? What's that? 200 years after I'm dead? I don't care. Tommy Cromwell's not gonna care. His head's off, his back and neck hacked to pieces. I tell you what he would have preferred, and I didn't have to know him as well as I did to know this. He would have damn well preferred that his son had chopped my head off violently when he was still alive to enjoy it. I gotta say, little bit disappointed that the painting that has largely survived of me and kind of become the image that everyone knows of me is from my later years. I just wish that, you know, the picture that everyone knew of me was perhaps me when I was a little more svelte, maybe back in my younger years. And again, it doesn't bother me at all. It literally doesn't bother me. I think I look great in that painting that everyone knows me from. But it just gives everyone this idea that I was always larger, which is not true. That was later on. So, you know, also that I would say is a regret. I think that's a bit of a regret, is kind of letting that be my legacy. Actually, if I'm being honest, that's another regret I do have, is, you know, because Holbein, he could take liberties, I suppose you might say. You know, it's his picture of, you know, my fourth wife. That he took a lot of artistic license there. You know, she was nowhere near as hot as he made her out to be with that painting. Oh, she was busted, quite frankly. She was not hot as he made her out to be. And which I think is just rude. I mean, the poor girl came all the way to England, and what did she get when she gets there? You know, she should have known. I mean, she wasn't innocent in the whole thing. She was a good lass. Oh, really? That just doesn't seem terribly sporting. Oh, once again, I have been absolutely shit-canned. Can't begrudge him for it. You know, he's an artist, and at the end of the day, artists they do have their proclivities, and they do have their, you know, foibles and everything, and it is about artistic license, which I do understand. It's not necessarily about just capturing what's really there. Sometimes you've got to embellish, but I do wish that he'd maybe captured the reality of how I looked rather than what ended up being the most well-known, famous image of me in history, looking rather fat. I wish I'd had him killed too, if I'm being entirely honest about it. Yeah, I wish I'd had Hans Holbein killed. After the whole Anne situation, I was saying, oh, Henry, you know, don't feel embarrassed. I wasn't embarrassed. It was that she was ugly, all right? It was that she was ugly. It had nothing to do with, quite frankly, a very romantic overture from me, where I turned up to greet her when she first arrived in the country, dressed as Robin Hood with some of the boys, and ran into her room and kissed her without really announcing myself. And she, allegedly, was quite disgusted, which, in her words, which I discovered later, why did this overweight man, old man, run into the room and start slobbering all over me? Does he not know my husband is the king? So that's embarrassing on her part, because I was a pretty much a specimen of a man. So no, it had nothing to do with me being embarrassed about that situation. Why would I be embarrassed about that situation? I was being romantic. She should be embarrassed, not me. God damn it. I think I'm just doomed to repeat this over and over again. Jeez. Hey, I tell you what, fellas watching. Typical story of dealing with women, eh? You can't live with them. But if you really need to, you can have them executed. If you really need to, though, don't just do it. You know, don't just do it willy-nilly. I tell you what, this young lady I'm fighting is starting to remind me of my bloody daughters. You know, teenage girls especially. What can you do? You know, dads out there who get it. You know, one minute you're all getting on fine, you're all Catholic, and then the next, you know, you declare yourself the head of the Church of England, and they're talking about how the Pope is the true head of the church, and to usurp him is to make you a heretic, and you've dishonored the entire family in the face of God. And you know, she's crying, and every time you talk she's crying. Why did you have my mother killed, she's saying. You know, one of them's crying about having her mother killed, the other's crying because you let her mother, you know, sort of waste away in a drafty castle up north somewhere, and you know, you have to get some of your fellas to go around and threaten her because she won't recognize you as the true head of the faith. But you know, on balance, I think we were all closer for it in the end. You know, I do really believe that, you know, you're not there to be your children's friends. I think that's hard for some people. You know, tough love is the best kind, and sometimes, you know, you need to get a few toughs to go around and threaten your daughter with horrifying execution if she won't recognize you as the supreme, you know, representative of God on earth. Oh, shit! This time, I'm going to fucking win. Shut up. Ah. Oh. Oh, nice. I can just throw rocks at her. Oh, shit, I'm out of rocks. Yeah, Wolsey would know what to do here. He had a good mind for strategy. Oh my god! Did I just do it? Got some nerves to behead her, I'm not gonna lie. Alright. And there you go, see? Walking away from her as she dies. Everyone says, oh, Henry VIII lacked class. He would never actually be there when his wives were executed. Well, look who just walked away when his bird lady was executed. Oh, it's the bird lady again. What now? Could I romance her? Oh, alright. So is that a no? Because I mean, she might not be dead. She did have wings. Honestly, a few tapestries, some nice paintings, a nice big table for a banquet. This would not be a bad place to, oh, that's a bit disturbing. There's a lot of kind of skeletons and rotting human statues, which is an interesting choice. Looks like a Franciscan, wouldn't trust him.
Dark Crusader.
Sounds like a Spaniard, really wouldn't trust him. Honestly, if you're having trouble with your wife, not a bad cell to keep her in. You've got previous wives arrayed around just to let her remember, you know, not as a threat, but just a reminder of one of her options. Nice beds of straw on the ground. Still relative opulence. I believe there's some windows up there, so there's a breeze coming in. Yeah, not bad. You keep your daughters in here too. I tell you bloody what, Mary, you will recognise me as the true head of the faith, or I'll have you die the same way your stepmother died. Oh God, bringing up children is just a delight. So many happy memories. Oh, hello.
By Aureus's divine will, I live again. It's a miracle.
So do you like...
I raised my
Like, being entirely truthful with you, that almost all went over my head. But hey, I was wondering, do you know anywhere good to get a cup of wine around here? And would you be interested in marrying the defender of the faith for the Catholic Church? And if you're not Catholic, well, I've got some good news for you there too.
is to
Right, yeah.
fellow chosen of Aureus.
Uh-huh.
We stand together in service of him.
All right. Well, I suppose that's not a no. We'll work on that. We'll come back to her later. Well, I think that's enough for... Oh. Can I change? Can I look different? Oh. That's much more kingly. Nice gold crown. Now, let's do a little looky here. Okay, now we're talking. I was about to go log off for the evening, but I didn't realize I could make this guy look a bit more kingly. Now that is, if I may, what I am bloody talking about. That is a king's armor there. Now, let's see. Finish it with the Greaves of Curse. Oh my goodness. That, if you don't mind me saying, is not just drip. That is a full flow. Well, seems almost a shame to end there, but end it there I shall. Has been a pleasure. And I am, of course, Henry VIII, Henry Tudor, King of England, Wales, Ireland, and parts of France. Not Scotland. That was a mistake. Never should have happened. But anyway, Henry Tudor, Henry VIII, Supreme Head, and no longer dead. Signing off.